Shut it time.
Welcome back to the Enjoy the Walk podcast, guys. As always, your host here, Dalton Deerdorf, joined by my great friend Dante. Dante, it was a great Easter Sunday for us. We enjoyed the time with family that we could, and excited to get into our next guest. A true juggernaut, I think you could call him, in the game of golf within the last few decades here, and excited to get into his story. A Golf Channel kind of regular, you could say. Best known for his buddy's trip, insights. So excited to bring Matt Ginella to the show. Matt, how's everything going today?
Well, boys, it's a treat to take a break from sort of the surreal, reality that we're all living in, right? So these opportunities to sort of take a break from all that, see some fresh faces to talk golf and life. I appreciate this opportunity. So thanks for having me on. And for the most part, the Ginella family is doing very well. I'm cherishing this time with little baby Bandon, our daughter who's 15 and a half, about to turn 16. She's the MVP of the house, hand making masks for everybody. So, and the weather's been great here in Florida, and we go to the Winter Park 9 and throw the ball every day, ride bikes. So we're staying busy, occupied, and positive.
We absolutely love to hear that. And, that's always first and foremost when, especially during these times, just to hear the kind of family, togetherness stories that everyone's kind of being able to share. It's the light of hope in this time where it's kind of just gotten a little crazy.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. And, our little guy, Bandon, is 2.5, almost 3. And, we marvel at the fact that he will never know. He doesn't have any sense of what's going on. And thankfully, right? So thankfully he's not, and he wakes up every day with such positive energy. He keeps us sane and he keeps us smiling, even laughing, and so how much is a laugh worth right now? Right? If you can find something to really laugh at and just escape, well, that's like we were saying, that's like finding a pot of gold, right? So this guy wakes up every morning and he's ready to build and play and swim and dance and sing. And it's thankfully we have it.
That's so great. And it's so true. I was outside doing the best we could to enjoy our Easter Sunday with my roommate today. And a song came on that kind of like we both stopped and looked at each other. It was a song by Eric Church. It basically boils down to the lyrics saying, "I learned that from a 3-year-old." And it's kind of all the qualities in life that we all like kind of overlook in the day to day. And it's just that. It's like you said, the true happiness, the joy, the almost just, the blissfulness of not understanding the rest of the world around you. And there's just something so special about that.
Yeah. We had a little lunch out by the pool this afternoon, and we put our feet in the first step, and I put his plate down next to me, and he looked up and he said, "This is nice, Dada. This is really nice." And I was like, "Well, you're absolutely right. It really is. Here we are. We have our feet in a pool, and we're side by side. We're sharing a lunch." But that comes from the mouths of babes. It's like the little guy just looked up, and it was like, you're damn right it is. Let's enjoy it. So
yeah, it's like, how many other times would you have truly looked at that one foot in the water and stopped and thought about how nice that moment was?
Yeah, that's great.
That's awesome. And I'm really happy to hear the family's doing well and staying, sane and healthy within this time. So let's get to golf. Let's talk golf, which we always love to do. Everyone knows kind of the Golf Channel side of things with you, I think, but what's always intrigued us the most is how did you get there? What kind of path did you take? And was it always set in your mind that you wanted to cover golf from an early time with you?
Yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, it was baseball for me. So my original love and what I was always chasing from early on, in fact, I would do mock games and record them at night when I was probably 10, 11, 12 years old. I would create Padres versus Giants scenarios, and, like from the 7th inning on, and create these, and I would do play-by-play and tape them and leave them by my bed for my dad, who went to work, he was a civil engineer for Bechtel Power. He would commute from Santa Rosa to San Francisco, and he would leave at 5 a.m., 4:30 in the morning, and he would take those tapes and the recorder with him on the bus, and he would listen to the game. And he was a Giants fan, and I was a Padres fan, so I almost always Padres won the game, but every now and then I'd give them a win for the Giants just to keep them listening. But that I was going to be the play-by-play guy for the San Diego Padres, and I worked at radio stations when I was in college. I went to Long Beach State my freshman year and worked at KLON as a news reader. I would do anything, right? Whatever they told me, and every now and then they'd let me do a report or something, or go do I remember Seth Greenberg was the coach at Long Beach State at the time. Dave Snow was the baseball coach. This was the time of UNLV's, dominance. So I was getting to, there was some action going on with that conference and that school. Lucius Harris played for Long Beach State, Byron Russell. So they had some good teams. So that was, I was going to be a radio guy, and when I was at St. Mary's, I ran the department my last couple of years at KSMC, and did all the play-by-play for their basketball and football teams. So
that's awesome, and I think we can all kind of tell today. You've always had that knack for being a very good in the moment kind of reporter, whether it's been on Morning Drive or out on the scene at all these golf courses, and it's really neat to kind of understand that it's always been that knack for you, and that kind of hunger to be in that play-by-play situation has always been in your veins.
The romance of radio and sort of the idea of painting a picture or creating or telling a story was what I think, in my mind, was what always spoke to me. That was the chemistry I had for that medium. And then, things changed, and opportunities presented themselves, my senior year at college at St. Mary's. Again, dead set on doing radio. I got an opportunity to carry cameras for Sports Illustrated photographers. My grandfather was one of the original owners of San Francisco 49ers. When all of the sort of the men that were owners of the Niners died, it became an ownership of widows. And they sold to the DiBartolo family when I was just a real little kid. But as a part of the sale, we got 8 tickets at the 50-yard line at Candlestick Park, 2 for my uncle, 2 for my other uncle, 2 for my aunt, and 2 for my dad. So I grew up going to Candlestick Park. We were at 50-yard line, great seats. And Sports Illustrated the Sports Illustrated photographers had befriended my uncle, who owned Cap's Corner in San Francisco. During the 89 earthquake, the SI photographers, that they shut that whole stadium down for the Giants A's World Series. Well, they went to the city trying to find a place to eat. My uncle said, sorry, we're closed. We're only open for police and firemen. And they said, well, we're Sports Illustrated photography. He goes, oh, sports, come on in. And they end up partying all night, befriended the director of photography. They needed a seat. They needed a seat for a photographer during some 49er Cowboys games. And then in the early, sort of early 90s to that 95 season. And when they would come, they would use my seat to put a photographer in, and I would get to go down on the field and carry cameras for photographers. And that's how I sort of started at Sports Illustrated, even in college, getting paid $75 to carry cameras. That was my introduction to photography. I had no clue that would ultimately end up becoming where I'd get a job. But
that's crazy. And that's kind of where, what I wanted to know too, was was there any inclination or was it just right place, right time? And it seems like so many folks that end up getting into an industry that they find themselves in long-term, it's less about I've always wanted to do it, and more about the, right place, right time, and just having not only 1 or 2 scenarios kind of fall into place, but a laundry list of things to just kind of that falls into place over time that lets them become what what they are today.
I mean, so many things had to happen, and I think about it all the time. I've done a fair amount of these reflections on a career. I guess I'm at that point in my life where I'm reflecting a lot, and it's the sliding doors moments, right? It's if they don't go to Cap's Corner for a meal, and my uncle doesn't meet the director of photography, and then they don't need a seat, and they don't call my uncle, and then I'm not, if I'm not in college in the Bay Area, and I can't go carry cameras, and then it goes on, it keeps going, right? Because then my dad transferred to New York City right as I was graduating from St. Mary's. I was going to go work at ESPN. I was for sure. I had an interview to be a production assistant at ESPN in September after I graduated in '95. So I just had time to kill. I drove their furniture cross country, helped them move into New York. And my uncle, again, called and said, hey, remember Heinz Klutmeyer, the director of photography at Sports Illustrated, who shot the 1980 Miracle on Ice cover, by the way, Heinz Klutmeyer. He's a legend. So he's the director of photography. He says, you got to call Heinz. That's my buddy. He's been getting you these gigs on the field. And I called. He said, come on in. I waited around all day. They gave me an internship in the communications department that day and hired me on the weekends to carry cameras for photographers. So if all this just keeps happening, and then as Golf Plus was just starting at Sports Illustrated, which is now an insert and more pages on golf. Now the golf photo editor, Ward Haynes, who became a dear friend of mine. Not many people loved golf at Sports Illustrated at that time. It was kind of there was all the big sports, right? And golf was this in the underbelly.
Now Tiger take us through, what year was that? You talk about kind of not many people enjoying really televised golf, or golf wasn't mainstream. What year was that?
95. So I started in 95 at SI. And, again, in the halls of Sports Illustrated, it's baseball. I was just talking to Alan Shipnikus about this. It was heavy baseball. The editors were a baseball crew, and Mark Mulvoy, the editor at the time in '95, he's big into hockey. They were blowing up football. NFL was they realized they could potentially try to start covering this all year round, and you had the NBA. So you had these were the sports, and golf. So Golf Plus was starting to be inserted. You could mark a box and start getting more pages of golf in your magazine. But if there was 3.1 million subscribers of SI, only about 300, 400,000 were getting Golf Plus at this time. So it was looked at like, well, it's the golf thing, right? And now, again, I'm in the photo department. I'm sort of doing whatever they asked me to do. Eventually, after the internship ended, they hired me full-time in the photo department. I was working 7 days a week, whatever they needed. I didn't care. I'm in my early 20s at Sports Illustrated. I'm like, this is the greatest. I can't believe what I just stumbled upon. I went to ESPN to do that interview. They said, look, if you like Sports Illustrated, they like you. You should stay there. We're going to pay you less. You're going to be in Connecticut, Bristol, Connecticut. This is by no means a gateway into being an anchor. They shot straight with me, and I was like, thank you. You know what? I'm going back to SI. So 95, I'm really the photo guy. I'm working on all these different editing bags of film back then. It was all film. That wasn't going to get in the magazine. I would just sort of help out. And along came 1996. Ward Haynes says to me, "Hey, I'm leaving as the golf photo editor. I'm gonna give him my notice in a month. Why don't you start coming in on Sundays? Shadow me. I'll show you how I do my job, and I'll suggest you get the job as I leave." Now, if Ward Haynes doesn't do this, who, by the way, Ward Haynes goes on and passes away in 9/11. He's in one of the towers working for Cantor Fitzgerald. And this guy, again, sliding doors, if he doesn't do this for me and mentor and shepherd me into that position, which, again, that's exactly what happened. The day he leaves, they hire me. You know what that week was? The Milwaukee Open, 1996, Tiger Woods' first tournament as a pro.
Hello, world.
Hello, my whole career. I mean, so do you know what I'm saying? Like, again, start going back and start, getting these checkpoints to the point where now I'm the photo editor of Golf Plus Golf at Sports Illustrated. Tiger Woods shows up. Now golf matters. And I've written Tiger a letter, and gave it to him at one of the photo shoots I've done with him over the years for SI and then Golf Digest and Golf World magazines, essentially saying, on behalf of everybody in the world of golf who is riding your coattails, I want to say thank you. Because I even knew back then, none of this was happening. I'm going on cover shoots with Walter Yost Jr., who's like a legend in the world of photography. Heinz Klugmeyer, we're posing tiger with a tiger for a cover of SI. Like now all of a sudden, golf is getting the cover of Sports Illustrated. That happened maybe once a year. Now it's happening on a pretty regular basis, thanks to Tiger Woods.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask too.
The
I mean,
needle.
100%. There's no doubt he's the needle.
Oh,
And
all
it just
caps.
it blows my mind, because when I looked back, like my dad and I talk about it all the time, and when you look back when that shift was, when the Milwaukee Open came around, he became a professional. And it just seemed like all of a sudden, yes, there was talk about this kid being good and being, a possibility of transcending the sport. All of a sudden it hit reality in the matter of 3 or 4 weeks.
Well, 1997, right? Masters. Well, he wins Vegas. He's Disney. Like he's like, wow, oh my God. But it was like, these are little tournaments. This is, basically
Sure,
kind of
still shooing him off a little
stuff.
bit.
He's still, oh, totally. And 97, first round Masters, all the eyeballs and the pressure. And he goes out in 40 on the front nine. And we were like, man, back nine, 30. Game over, game, set, match. From that point forward, he just started, snuffing out careers right and left. It was crazy.
I think it's so funny that maybe the contrast to make on the amount of careers he has given to the sports publication side of things, the careers he's ruined on the PGA Tour.
I mean, ruined in a sense, but brought more money. That's why.
For sure.
Davis Love is just too nice of a guy. Fred Couples is like too nice of a guy. Guys like Ernie Els and Phil Mickelson were still not willing to concede. They were, Monty made some cracks, but then, he just like, obliterated Monty. I mean, it was like, when he had those opportunities. And then, Sergio was up there trying to be the Spaniard was coming, but it just like, eventually Sergio goes on to crying at the Masters because he's like, Tiger just, that was, I mean, we will never see anything like this. I mean, Brooks Koepka's given us a little sliver of a glimpse of sort of the jawbone and the chest and the chutzpah, like, of what Tiger had. But like, are you going to get to 80 wins and 15 maybe? Like,
well,
no.
that's the thing. I would even argue we saw it when Spieth kind of had his 3-year run there. Like when he came into, especially at Augusta, people were starting to almost crown him king of Augusta. When he was before the collapse on 12, he was it was like he was like the chosen one around Augusta there for a couple years, and then all of a sudden it's in his mind and gone. It's like the longevity in which Tiger just reigned over the world of golf is just absurd to anyone else's career.
And everybody knew he was the guy to beat. And then they couldn't beat him. Like, think about that too. You know what I mean? Like, I love those things where they give the other great players a list of his accomplishments and records and streaks and guys like Jason Day and Rory and Jordan and Justin and all these guys just look at it and they're like, no, that's unbelievable. When they, that's all you need to know.
Yeah.
And I remember, I don't know exactly who said it, but they said during that prime time of like Tiger's years, it was Tiger was playing for first, everybody else was playing for second.
Yeah, I mean, that's of course. That was the way. That's just the way. I mean, very special. I mean, I think now we're talking competitors, right? So Michael Jordan and Kelly Slater, Kobe Bryant, the types of guys who have, I read Chris Ballard's book, I think, on Kobe Bryant, where he played his buddy 0 to 100, and he would never let his buddy score. You know what I mean? He just wouldn't let him score. That's a next level of competitive energy that not many of us can ever begin to relate to, and that's Tiger Woods. He's competitive.
There's a reason we can't relate to it, and it's for the best in his perspective of this. There's no one else that can possibly even fathom that in their minds, let alone compete with it.
Yeah, yeah. So
So
we can go talk Tiger. I mean,
we could too. It's that's our guy. We love
yeah,
just
I
kind
know.
of diving into the background. But I guess stemming off of that, the effect outside of the professional world of just kind of the next step in what your career saw with the trips and the buddies trips is what did that boom on Tiger's career, Sports Illustrated covering golf more, due to just the general public of the game? How did it affect, courses being built, the mentality of more buddies trips or guys getting into golf? Like, how did that expand into the late 90s, early 2000s?
Well, Tiger brought a lot more interest in the game. Right now, I think looking back, and I've had this conversation several times. I don't think the game of golf was ready. He was breaking down a lot of barriers. Here's a kid who's not white. He's not, a country club kid. He's not, so he was he was just doing things to the game that I don't think the game was ready for. And, it was still pretty stiff and rigid, full of rules. It was like, you can't do this, don't do that, and I wish that, think about all the grow the game initiatives that have been sprouting up here in the last, 10 years, but then even go back 20 years. First tee started about 23 years ago. Um, we're only now sort of enjoying sort of the benefits of what's taken place that sort of happened after, that first wave, that tsunami of Tiger interest. It kind of came and it was like, wow. And then, courses were being built at that time. People were saying, commissioning their architects, build me the toughest golf course in the country. And Pete Dye's talking about, we need 8,000 yard courses, because where does this end? How do you defend against these guys like Tiger Woods? I think he was starting to, so while more people are coming, the game is trying to sort of guard against this type of golfer. And meanwhile, all the beginners are like getting punched in the face. They're skiing down double diamonds. And it's like, hey, is that fun? No, I'd like a bunny slope, please. You know what I mean? And here we are now, just catching a second wave of golf interest. Thanks again, in large part, to Tiger Woods, who continues to be the reigning Masters champion, which that championship was so good. Apparently, he needs to be reigning champ for longer than a year.
If there was any other championship win to deserve more than 12 months as a reigning champ, it was 2019 Masters.
Thank God it's not Patrick Reed or Danny Willett or, so, you know what I mean? Like, we got Tiger as the ongoing reigning champ. But I think, if you go back, to answer your question, here comes Mike Kaiser, right? So 95, Sand Hills, he falls in love with this sort of concept. He goes to Dornick and he says, if 10,000 people from North America can come over here to play golf, now let me he finds Southwest Coast of Oregon, him and Howard McKee. 1999, we get Bandon Dunes. 2001, we get Pacific Dunes. And think about that, right? So in 15 to 20 years, Bandon Dunes vaults into the top spot of buddies trips, of pure golf destinations in America, and arguably now in the world, because Mike Kaiser went the other way from all these guys saying, I want pro tournaments, I want a US Open, I want long and hard, I want $400, $500 green fees, eventually, like, the Kiowas, the Sawgrasses, the Durals, the Whistling Straits, all these places that are in theory bucket list trips. Kaiser's philosophy being, I want people to come here. I realize it's a tough get, so I'm going to take that into account in terms of pricing, menus, lodging, golf in general, and fun factor. I want to make sure they come back. So that energy towards the avid amateur, as opposed to developing golf for the people. I say that he developed golf for people who pay to play the game. Other people were developing golf for the people who get paid to play the game, who might stop by for 4 to 6 days a year, who might come around. That's why I think that this, and then he also built it, all in one spot, so you could go and hunker down and maximize time together. Myrtle Beach had been doing that before him. People were jumping in cars. Myrtle Beach was marketing Myrtle Beach as one destination. That was their genius. They were giving the golf away, but then getting people to spend where they could get their margins with the drinks and the food and the off-course activities. So Myrtle Beach was already, they were already going and figured it out well before a lot of these other trails. But that's where I think that's where I think this buddies trip concept started sort of really getting momentum.
Now, the biggest thing that I'm always curious with that kind of statement you just made is, did it take basically a full generation to come full circle because of just logistics, like getting these courses built, marketing, getting people to understand these courses? Or did it take that mentality of easier is actually, or not easier, but I should say just a more enjoyable golf experience, not one that's 8,000 yards, testing the average golfer beyond enjoyment? Was it just something that took a while to crack, like the golf kind of greats that were building all these courses and around all the money that was going into these courses?
Yeah, and I think it started we started realize, so as buyers, as it became more and more of a buyer's market, it started, competition breeds excellence, right? So okay, Kohler started adding more courses. You started getting more courses being built in Michigan, Arcadia Bluffs, Forest Dunes coming, and then it was like, people are traveling. What if we add, again, Kaiser's formula, 1 + 1 = 3. One course is a curiosity. 2 courses makes a destination. And if you build that destination, now people are going to stay for more than a night, maybe more than 2 nights. How can I start getting people here for 3 nights, 4 nights? What does that take? Pinehurst has always had multiple courses. They were the cradle of American golf. Harbor Town, Kiowa was adding golf. Eventually here comes Stream Song, right? They build 2 at a time, Core Crenshaw and Tom Doak simultaneously. Now we're starting.
Dream.
Yeah, but I mean, that's, again, Myrtle Beach always had multiple courses. And I think, people were starting this trail concept. Robert Trent Jones Trails came online. Oh, we'll build 11 hubs with multiple courses at each hub and see, give them a wide range of price ranges. That brought a lot of people to play golf to that area at that time. So I think this has started, Scottsdale was being developed as a place where you could go and hunker down and get multiple courses. And this buddies trip, I remember I started the Ambush in, which I was celebrating, these buddies trips. That would have been 2007. And we had no idea. I said, hey, tell us about your trip. Well, I got 13,000 alpha planners saying, hey, come see our trip over the course of the time that I was telling that story. Became a very well-read page in the magazine. I was going out and seeing all these different ways that these guys were doing it. One course, multiple courses, moving around, staying, in one area, different budgets. I was like, wow, everybody's got a buddies trip. We didn't really realize that. And it kind of, we sort of opened up that can of great worms.
Yeah, I think it's become, maybe it was in the last decade, but definitely these past few years has become just a staple in any kind of golf fanatics yearly planner, is let alone, all right, where am I going to watch the majors, this, that, and the other thing, but it's, all right, when am I taking my buddies trip to? When am I getting my great group of friends together? And whether it's a 2 or 3 hour road trip, or it's a flight completely across country or across the world, it's something that most golf fans are planning into their schedule.
If I answer, one question on a regular basis, if I would say, let's say I've averaged it once, maybe 1.5 times a day for the last 14 years. It's, where should we go next? We've done here. Where do we? What should we do when we go here? Like that. An alpha planner takes that job so seriously. They're usually a very selfless individual who wants to make sure that their buddies has a great time with their other buddies, that they can afford it, that they're going to be able to have fun playing the golf, that the off course activities are going to match the needs and the likes of their group. I mean, it's a per trip basis, right? It's a per destination basis. It's a per, I go on a lot of trips. This trip, I know it's going to be about a lot of off course activities. This one's going to be about a lot of golf activity. I got to be sharp. This is about the trophy. It's, you know what I'm saying? Like, it just depends on, each one takes on their own sort of personality.
And that's the beauty of it. And like you said, that alpha planner does kind of just take care of it all. No matter if there's a lot of off-course activity or on-course activity, all of it seems to be kind of taken care of from that person who just prides themselves in giving their buddies the best experience possible.
Well, if you're a buddy on a trip, all you want to do is, and you get this a lot, tell me how much I pay, when to show up, and what to expect. And and I'm in. I don't want to think about anything else, because they want to take a break. This is their break from their reality. And we also realized it was recession proof, right? Even in the darkest of times, guys will never give up those 4 days or 3 days and never relinquish that money. If they have to hide it in their mattress, they will make that trip happen, because it's the most sacred 3 or 4 days of their year. And that's why I take it very seriously. It's like, people come to me to make sure that they're maximizing their returns on those 3 to 4 or 5 days. I can't let them down. Because if I do, they're going to come back and be like, dude, you cut me, you screwed me.
It's your neck. It's your neck at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I pride myself on the fact that of all the years and all the answer, I always go back to, okay, what's your budget? What's your priority? How many guys? What's the range of handicap? What's the, do you want to? Because to find that fit, it's not just a go to Bandon Dunes. It's not just that simple. It's not, because that's not the best place for everybody. It just like Pinehurst isn't the best place, just like Kohler isn't the best place, just like Forest Dunes. It just depends on what you're looking for and where you've been in the past.
I think that's crazy. And like, people always look for that, off the top of their heads, ask for, all right, what's the number one place? And I think you hit the nail on the head. It's like, well, what are you looking for? Because there's no one for everybody. It all matters of what you're looking into. And I think that's the beauty of having so many options available, whether it's in the States or, across the world. There's just, it seems like endless opportunities to go enjoy yourself.
It literally is endless. And that's, again, going back to Tiger Woods and the development of the game, and looking around and watching how Pinehurst has influenced Bandon, but Bandon has then influenced Pinehurst, and Pinehurst back to Bandon, and then that influences, these other places, which influences Stream Song, and Stream Song then influences, Kiowa, or, whatever it all, like, if you're on that national level, your competitors they're down the street. Forest Dunes' competitor is Arcadia Bluff, but also Forest Dunes, with now adding a short course of Forest Dunes and reversible routing like the Loop, they're now a national player. So now as I told Lou Thompson, the owner, I said, before you get further into this, I would strongly suggest you get on a plane, go see Pinehurst, go to Kohler, go to Bandon, go to Scottsdale, go to, this is your competition. Stop looking at like, oh, the guy down the street is my competition. Your competition is everything.
It couldn't have been more perfectly said. And I think the short course, which I want to get into here a little bit, is just become maybe the craze over the last, 5 years, even longer, maybe. You can correct me if I'm wrong there, but the short course has kind of taken center stage in a lot of folks' designs, with Pinehurst adding the cradle, Bandon, always having their version. And it's cool because you have one in your backyard too, a short course that's kind of become a little bit of critical acclaim over the last since the redesign at Winter Park. And I want you to get into that a little bit. How has that course kind of seen its days in the past, and then how did that redesign come to fruition to truly make it a remarkable, enjoyable place that it is today?
Well, before I get there, I'll just say, going back to the short course, and again, this is Mike Kaiser's genius. He realized his clientele. So I always say Mike Kaiser yes, he's a genius, but no one has a better set of ears than Mike Kaiser, right? He always says, what do we think? He always polls the audience. He always wants to get and he realized his baby boomers and his mass clientele were getting to the point where they can't just spend 4 days playing 36 a day. And that's why he built the short course, because he knew if he, again, all focused on the guy who pays to play and enhance that experience. He knows they've come a long way. He's got a captive audience. How do you give them options? So the preserve and then the putting course, preserve can be played $50 off season, $100 in season, but also it's free if you've already played 2 rounds that day. Your 3rd round is free. The putting course is free. That just making that enhanced experience. Well, that ultimately ends up, causing Piners to go, well, we might need to figure out how to, and Bob Dedman, Tom Pashley, to their credit, they dug in and figured it out, and they reinvented the front porch of Piners. Now, what Winter Park is, and that, again, that ripple effect will continue to happen. So that's happening now as Forest Dunes is now adding a short course by the guys who redid Winter Park 9. So Keith Rebb and Riley Johns, I happen to meet those guys at Cabot. I come down back home as they were building Cabot Cliffs, these 2 young guys working for Court Crenshaw at the time. And I come down here and I get pulled aside. This is probably 2015. And I get pulled aside. I get pulled into a lunch with Matt Haggerty, who's one of the top producers at Golf Channel, who's a Winter Park resident. And I was living downtown at the time. And one of these locals who was really invested in the idea that this golf course, Winter Park, was an underachiever, in which it was terrible. Losing $250,000 a year. The agronomy hadn't been touched in like 30 or 40 years. It was just thatched, no drainage, flat. The greens were almost like sand greens filled with weeds. It was just, but it was $15. I still played it. It was still a walkable 9-hole short course that, you could hit shots, and I would play it on a regular basis. I still liked it. And they said, hey, coming up on 100 years here, we think there's something we could go to the city, try to inspire them to, maybe we can get some private money to try to put in this. What do you think? Nick Faldo lives local. We think Nick Faldo might be a good guy to do that. And I was like, Nick Faldo? How much money? What? Like, no. I think Nick Faldo is a great announcer and had a brilliant career. But, give me your top 5 Nick Faldo designed golf courses. Right. Anyway, so and he doesn't do the work. You'd then you'd bring in his guys, and they eventually the mayor came back and sort of got inspired by this idea, and I said, hey, and they said, well, who would you have? I said, well, Keith Rebb, who I just met, working with Court Crenshaw, who's worked on Stream Song. He worked at Lost Farm. He's now at Cabot Cliffs. He lives in the Orlando area. Like, this is the guy who does the work. Like, he'd be very capable of, and he'd be in the dirt. This would be your guy. And I said, he'd be 1/10 the price of a guy like a Faldo, you're going to pay $1 million just for the name. And so they said, oh, very interesting. Well, that sort of started this groundswell of what they could do and how much it would cost and how could they maximize their investment. And the city came up with $1.2 million. So for $1.2 million, I went to Keith and said, hey, what do you think? And he said, well, I'd have to talk to Bill and Ben. I went actually to Bill at that point and said, is this something, I don't want to cause any problems with your crew. I don't want to disrupt the apple cart here. And he said, well, if the timing's right, I would definitely make him available. No problem. And Keith said, if I did this, I'd bring Riley in with me. They brought in Blake Conant, and it went out to bid. So they had to play by the rules of, the city, which is where Mickelson got screwed in San Diego, because he got 2 in with the city and ended up, blabbing about how he was going to get the job, and actually that ended up costing him a job. But Keith and Riley played it by the books. They came and presented. The city hired them. They had a great vision. Riley is a master artist and was able to really present their plan. John Ashworth stopped by at the time. He had just finished Goat Hill Park. Bill Core walked by. And I remember Bill telling them, telling Keith, look, just because you know how to do all this different stuff doesn't mean you have to put that in to this finished product. Bill's big thing is restraint is one of the greatest sort of talents that an architect can have, to show restraint, to sort of not overdo it with, let me show you how I can build this green and, that bunker and over to,
I think that speaks so well, because I also, it always reminds me of the interview Faraday had with Crenshaw as well. And they talked about how just Crenshaw loves to approach it from a minimalist point of view. How can I let this ground be, have a finished golf course that's a really treat to play, yet look like we barely touched anything?
Yeah. This is another Ben Crenshaw and Bill Core, which is, from about 40 yards in to every green. Ben told me that they like to think of that area as the sort of the front of a house. Do you make it easy for people to get to your front of your house with a pathway and lights and, and flowers and sort of, or do you put up, landmines and, people that jump out of the bushes and scare people to get, no, you make it welcoming. You make it a place that, and so now if you start thinking about that, you start thinking about their courses and sort of what's happening in front of those greens. That speaks a lot to sort of Bill and Ben and their thought and their sort of their sensitivity, their deft touch sort of around the front of the greens. And Keith and Riley and Blake and the team that they assembled, that's the team they sent. That was their team. They jumped in, they scraped it all, they turned that thatch upside down, they used the worst part of the land to build it up, moved the bunkers, created strategy, character, took out trees, exposed the train tracks behind the 5th and 7th tees, built up the 8th green. They brought the city in. There were sprigging parties with the city, and they talked to the neighbors because they were in a fishbowl. You cross the street, as you guys know, 6 times to play it. They embraced this whole thing. It was like a match made in heaven. You had great bones, great character, great history. You had just enough money for them to do it exactly the way they needed to do it. They did the work. They got it done. It was there. It was, these guys were hungry and talented and efficient and they pulled off the cover, and now it's making over 100,000, 125,000 a year, and that's without really even trying. They haven't even really maximized the potential of Winter Park 9, to be totally honest with you. There are other things that eventually are going to come that are going to make it even better, food and beverage and kind of that kind of those enhancements. But that's just a feel good story, and it just happens to be in my backyard. So I'm so grateful.
What another happening of life that is just happened to build itself into Matt Ginella's backyard like that. But one thing I wanted to touch on too, I mean, the guys, for $1.2 million to completely flip a course like that and have money left over to build an awesome putting green out by the 9th tee too. Yep. It just speaks to how much they paid attention, like you said, of just getting the job done and being diligent. Because it seems like a lot of times projects like that can go over budget and take longer than anticipated. So for those guys to knock it out of the park like that is a really true testament to how, diligent they were of being, on the mark with everything they did.
Everything. And, their background and, they've all, they've worked with the best, right? So Riley, I think, has actually worked with Doak and Gil and Bill and Ben at some point or another. Like, these guys are, and Keith is literally, he's at Cabot St. Lucia right now, literally stranded down there. The only guy down, the only reason why the project is going to at all advance at St. Lucia's because Keith is literally there by himself. And, and he did the sheep ranch. I think they both worked on the sheep ranch. They both worked at Kapalua, the redo of plantation. I mean, these guys are, and together they make a great team. And so, now they've built the new short course, the 10-hole par 3 at Forest Dunes. And I've walked it in the dirt and hit some shots, and I've seen pictures, but that's scheduled to open in June. And that's going to be yet another testament to what these guys are capable of. And don't be surprised if they go on to continue to get a lot of these types of jobs. Again, whatever amount of money you have, if you've got $1 million, you're going to get $3 million worth of work out of these guys. If you got $3 million, you're going to get, $7 million. What they're going to over deliver.
Yeah, I mean, you said that perfectly. When we walked Winter Park 9, Dante and I both were down there for the PGA show. When we walked Winter Park 9, there was a feeling like you were on a high-end country club with just the way it played. The greens were a test. I mean, they are truly kind of the teeth of the course, I guess you could say. Yet, like you said, it was playable from, 40, 50 yards in, like a lot of the shots you have around the course. And you walked off of the ninth green, obviously into that nice little, back patio area. And you thought, you give yourself a second to look over everything and you think, man, like, can I tee it up again? Like, what an enjoyable 9. There wasn't a hole out there that made me think, that was okay.
Well,
each hole presented itself in such a special and unique way.
And I say it's high side half pars, right? So the first hole is 230-yard par 3.5, but they list it as a 4. The second hole is a par 3. The third hole is a par 4.25. They list it as a 5. Because they said, why not? Hey, if people have got putts for eagles, anybody going to walk off and be like, bah, I hate when I have too many putts for eagles. No, and the fourth hole is a damn good par 5, maybe the best par 5 in sort of all of Central Florida. I mean, it's just a great 3-shot hole. And then the fifth hole is about a par, 3.75, listed as a 4. The sixth hole is, I think, one of the greatest. I say it's the greatest par 3 in America. It's listed as a 4, right? The guys won skins games with, how many times you got to have a 2 or a 3 to win a skin there, but it's a par 4. And then the seventh hole is just a damn good hole and sneaky tough with that green. You got to hit it on the right side, and pins back right or front left, you're trouble. And then eight's just a great little short 3. And then 9 is, again, another par 3.25 that's listed as a 4. So people are walking off making their first par of their life, their first birdie of their life, their first eagle of their life. And it might have all been in the same round, by the way, and with smiles on their faces and wanting to go back. In reality, you might only hit 11 full shots per round because, if you talking about high side half pars, a lot of the other shots are little half wedges or putts from off the green. So think about that. Only 11 full shots, maybe 12 full shots in a 9-hole round. And it's just this fun factor and generational golf. So kids, couples, grandparents, what you name it. It's all happening out there every day.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. The course challenges not only like your scratch handicap player, but it's also playable for that kid who's just turning to learn. And Dalton and I discuss this all the time. That I said that course is not a walk in the park. You really have to strategize your shots and really think about what kind of shot you want to take. And then even with like the skins game, when you're saying about 11 full shots, when we were playing, we were coming up to the 9th hole, and I had a strategy in the back of my head. Well, that all went out the window, and I kept on hearing like, this guy eagled this hole, and I was like, well, okay, out comes like exactly 3-iron, hybrid, 3-wood, or whatever you have to do to get it there. And that's what's so amazing about it is the fact that and there's discussions about it, and that's a different rabbit hole we could possibly go down, but it's the length isn't the issue. I mean, it's how you strategically play it. And that's what I loved about the course itself. And the same thing, walking off 9, Dalton, I was like, Hey, can I just loop back the one real quick? I'll meet you guys again.
Yeah. Well, Riley said that the new short course that Core and Crenshaw are building next to Lost Farm at Barnbougle, he said I think he said there's 14 holes, maybe 13 or 14 holes. They're still trying to figure out with 2 like drivable par fours. So it's sounding a little bit closer to something like a tweener between like Bannon Preserve. He said Bannon Preserve on steroids. So that sounds amazing, right? That sounds cool. Bannon Preserve, to Winter Park 9, some sort of, mashup of that kind of concept. So that's, I think that's where we're moving to. I know Doak is building more of a shorter 18-hole golf course at Sand Valley. That's going to be more like 6,100, 6,200 yards. It's probably going to play a lot longer than that because not unlike Harbor Town, where you got to hit your marks. You got to hit at 220 off the tee. If you go 240, you don't have a shot. If you get at 180, you don't have a shot. You got to hit that mark. And, and so what, to know that, you got to be able to know your game and figure all that. So I think this is, the game, and that's why I sort of harp on all this stuff and the rollback. And I think for me, I feel like things we're adjusting based on sort of where we're at with technology and cost and time that we have to play the game from an amateur level. Like, I really don't care what happens at the pro level. I really don't. I think we have plenty of tough golf courses to keep them interested and intrigued and to test them in a lot of different ways. And we have we can narrow fairways and grow out rough and speed up greens. And, you can do a lot of things for them. I don't worry about them. For us, I think the game is moving in all the right directions go again back to Pinehurst and Winter Park 9 and the Goat Hill Parks and the new short course at Forest Dunes that sort of complement the shorter course at Sand Valley that Doak's next to Mammoth Dunes. This is all happening by virtue of our needs and demands as the retail golfer, and people are answering the call because if they do, we'll go there.
Well, that's it. I was just going to say, how do you not answer the call when you look at places just getting the rave reviews that they are, designing it the way they are, the way that they're doing it? And, when you said, you got me excited when you said a mashup of Bandon and Winter Park 9 and Pinehurst. I mean, the short course, like when you start talking those kind of mashups, and putting that kind of thought process into another 10 years of growing and building golf courses in that direction, that's exciting.
We got enough big golf. We got it covered. We got it. It's all out there, and there's plenty for us to choose from, right? But what we needed was, and again, the skiing analogy, we have plenty of double diamonds. We need more bunny slopes, and that's what's coming now. The reason why Top Golf blew up like it did is because that was the perfect sort of answer to sort of the void that the game had left from an architectural standpoint by building too much big, tough golf. So if you could rock up at Top Golf and they didn't care what you wore and they let you, play music and, and there could be women and fun and it was family by day and parties by night. I always said, golf, they always used to tell me golf takes too long. That's its problem. 5 hours, terrible. No. When I was leaving Top Golf from the early start, 7 years ago when I just was started a morning drive, they sent me down there and we left. And as we were leaving at 11 o'clock at night, people were still filing into the place. There was a 4-hour wait for a stall. So I was like, wait a minute. If it's a 4-hour wait to get to hit balls for an hour or two, what I'm realizing is golf doesn't have a time problem. It has an experience problem. It's not that it's a bummer it takes 5 hours to play. It's a bummer that while we're playing for 5 hours, It's miserable. It's too expensive. It's not fun. They're telling me what I can and can't do. I have to only be in a foursome. I got to go over here. I got to take a cart. I can't walk. Like, do you know what I'm saying? It didn't have a time problem. It had an experience problem. Because let me tell you right now, when I'm on my buddy's trip, or if I'm at Pebble Beach, I'm not rushing around to play. I want to make it last as long as possible. Within, I don't want to cause any problems, and I want to keep up with the group ahead of me. But I'm not in any rush to end it. Like, how many great rounds have you had when you're in the fourth hole and you're like, can we just slow this down? Can we start all over? Can we, that's because you're having a great experience.
So many times you look at buddies' trips and you're like, man, I just had a 10-hour day and I'm still asking for more. Like I've been on the course for how long?
That's it.
And you still not enough. Yeah.
And that's the same thing, like you were saying earlier, is, you're paying this money to have a good experience. You're going to step away from reality. Golf's hard enough as it is, but
exactly.
We all love the game, and that's why we like going on these trips. It's going to be difficult because that's just the game. The game of golf is hard. But I'm going on a trip with my buddies to play golf. I want a fun experience. So that's what we need. I mean, I like the challenge. I love the challenge that golf brings.
Of course.
But I want to have fun when I go on these trips. I hate going on trips, paying hundreds of dollars to play a course, and I'm slapping it around out there, and I'm looking for balls, and it's just a difficult golf course. I've never played it before. I've only played it once. I'm going to come out of there.
There's no beverage cart. There's no, they're telling you, speed up, slow down, move over here, stop there. You can't do this. You can't do that. Are you wearing the right thing? You're like, I am the customer, right? Like, you do know that, right? Like, I paid to be here. Like, go, I would, go F yourself, really. I mean,
yeah, that's what it boils down to.
You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, like, there's no other industry, with the exception of maybe airlines, that treats their customers as though it's like they're doing you a favor for having you pay them to be there. And that's where Mike Kaiser started changing the way this is all happening. It was like, wait a minute. So if I get there, I get the run of the place. We get fire pits. We get cottages. We get to hang out. We, the experience gets extended beyond just the first tee to the 18th green. We get to, like, the food is affordable, and we can take it out there. We can go back here. We can order it to our rooms. We can stay down at the bunker bar until we want to leave. They'll leave an employee there until we want to leave. Like, that's amazing to me, because how many places you go and they're like, all right, it's wrap it up. It's midnight. You're like, midnight? I just got going. I mean, I just broke away from my reality, and if I want to be told what to do, I'll go back home. That's where I get told, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is, that experience, service, making people want to come back is where we're at now. Thank God.
I'm excited to see, I guess all I can say is I'm excited to see the next kind of 20 years. Like, we talked about that gap earlier of when Tiger came to the scene to kind of this style of golf finally making its way into the mainstream. And I'm excited to see where that next kind of, transition will be. And I think it's going to be even more on the, side of being better for the amateur, being better for everyone who's involved in enjoying the game.
Well, the walls are down now. So all the 9-hole, the 12-hole, the 14-hole, the 17th-hole, par 3 at Sand Valley, it doesn't matter anymore. Now it's, match play, count 'em all, whatever, all the different games that we have to play, Ryder Cup, a Stableford, all these, we have all these options, and we can go out, I'm not sure, I don't play a lot of traditional rattle bottom 18-hole golf rounds. It's very rare. It's, but when we go to play basketball, if we play, 1-on-1, 21, 7 up, pig, horse, 2-on-2, how often do you play 5-on-5, full court with a ref, basketball? No, but it's all called basketball. I would call you guys and be like, hey, you want to go play some hoops? Yeah. We don't really discuss what we're going to play. We know there's going to be a basketball. We know there's going to be a net, and then we're going to figure it out. depending on how many guys show up or what the situation is. We'll figure out a game, right?
Yeah.
That's what golf is becoming. Hey, you guys, you're going to want to play golf? It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to go pay $225 and, play 18 full holes and it's going to take 5.5 hours. Winter Park 9 is a classic example of that. It's not, we play an hour and 40 minutes. We play 8-somes, 10-somes. We don't putt for anything more than a par. It's a gross skins game where the highest handicapper, most in a very frequent basis, ends up scooping the pot. It's just the great equalizer. And we're figuring out that formula of fun, and we're rinsing and repeating with everybody having their own spin on it. And we benefit. We win.
Speaking of, kind of just the great mesh between the new and the old. One more thing before we let you go and enjoy the rest of your evening. I want to talk Goat Hill Park and specifically the Wishbone Brawl, which I think has just become such an awesome event to bring some pros in, bring out the wooden sticks and just have an awesome old school time with sort of the new era spin on it.
Yeah, and again, another mashup of sort of all that's good, and that's what the game is capable of. It originally started Xander Schauffele's college coach at San Diego State. His daughter had some medical complications. They needed some help paying some of those bills, and they needed some support. And Xander, Dean Wilson and John Ashworth, Dean Wilson being a former tour player, living in that area and going up and falling in love with Goat Hill Park and getting a relationship together with John, kind of said, is there something more we can do here with this facility? And there was a connection to Xander through David Emmerich, who's one of the coaches there, the coach at Goat Hill Park. And so they brought Xander in. Chris Riley was part of Charlie Hoffman. So, they started baking out this idea of what's possible. Well, year one was one thing. Year two, Mike Weir came as Dean Wilson's good buddy, Charlie Hoffman and Xander. And then year three, now Chris Riley was back and Jeff Ogilvie came, a longtime Link soldier. So, and the crowds kept building. They have the kids course that they built for the kids that they incorporated into the event. It's persimmons. It's a clinic. They've gone from like 300 to 400 fans to now 800, 850 fans. Jeff Ogilvie wins last year's Wishbone Brawl in a playoff, sudden death, acing it the ninth hole with a amphitheater gallery going ballistic. You can't make it up. And it's got this momentum. And again, I think what we're going to see more of is these live streaming events where we're going next with these sort of offshoot events with cool concepts is we're not going to need the TV trucks and the TV production quality. We're going to be able to sort of peer in on these really cool little sub events and get a good, reason for doing it, good cause, a good group of dudes, and for all the right reasons, and a course like Goat Hill Park that allows them to play these persimmons, and again, high side half pars and all the various strategic elements that goes along with a place like Goat Hill Park. It just music, food, fire pits, rinse and repeat.
It blows my mind. I drove actually up the driveway of Goat Hill Park when I was a sophomore in college, which was 2013. It was a dump. We actually, the entire team kind of like frowned upon it, looked at it, and we're like, Coach, what are we doing here? And like when we came out to San Diego, it was kind of the first, 2 or 3 things that popped up in the Google search as golf, close to where we were staying at the time. And it's awesome for me to look back on that and say like, man, what a transformation these guys have done with this place, because it was a dump and the city kind of had neglected it for years, and to see what it's become now and to be able to hold the likes of some tour pros like Charlie Hoffman and Xander Schauffele, and just to see them experiencing, not only fun within their own right, but bringing back all those, the kids into the game and to that area is just, it's unbelievable.
Well, you guys, I mean, I could go on and on, but, first of all, in 2013, John Ashworth and I were already really good friends at that time. And he said, I'm doing this 100-hole hike for charity. I'm going to do it at this place, Goat Hill Park. I want to get it some notoriety, some recognition. It's fallen on hard times. I think there's at some point I may try to invest in this place some way, shape, or form. I'd love, come on out, do this 100-hole hike with me. I had never seen it. I remember driving up that driveway like you did. My dad was going to drop me off, and I was going to go do a 100-hole hike at Goat Hill Park, carrying my own bag. And after the first hole, down, up, down, up. And I was like, wait a minute. It's called Goat Hill Park. Like I was like, this is not good. Like this is a very tough walk. And now I was like, I'm doing this 6 rounds. Like, I mean, the blisters on the bottom of my feet were the size of the bottom of my feet. Like, it was so, and the course was ratty. And I was like looking at John going, why did you pick this place? What is it? And he grew up there and he saw something in it. He saw the potential. He rallied the community. His nephew, Jeff Cunningham, Lauren Miller, this team of people, the maintenance crew, the Oceanside community, guys like Dean Wilson, Kelly Slater, Bill Murray have all contributed. Guys like Jeff Ogilvy have gone out there quite a bit and just thrown a bag over their shoulders and played this golf course. Because it's the core to the culture and the fabric of the game. As we know it, and you got to have these places. John Ashworth was held at knife point early on in his sort of investment back into this facility by some kids who and he kind of waved a flag at him and got him to put. Some of those kids in that gang have now become golfers and almost like scratch golfers at Goat Hill Park and come out with their whole families and hit balls on the driving range. Like that's the kind of community impact he's having, well beyond the Wishbone Brawl, which is sort of this cherry on top of an amazing Sunday every year. But that's what's happening there on a day-to-day basis. And they've got a caddy program and they teach kids, and they've got a junior course that they call the playground. Like, we need that. That's the bunny slope stuff and the core to the community that's important.
I think it's why you advocate for it so hard. And I think, we love to do our part in it as well, as small of a, listenership and following we have, but it's why municipals are so important and why we stand kind of on the foot of municipal golf courses and advocate and push for their involvement in the game, because it brings a city together through a municipal golf course.
I'm hoping no one has the answers of what's going on in this world right now, and when we get out of it, and what are going to be the sort of, what is the fallout from this pandemic. But I'm hoping and praying that this sort of revival, this sort of momentum and investment into a community green space like Lyons Muni, like Canal Shores, like Week Wake, like Keeney Park, like, Bethpage Park for that matter, Torrey Pine, from Goat Hill Parks and Winter Park Nines. I'm hoping that we continue to look at these courses and these facilities as so much more than just a golf course. This is a watering hole for the community to come and gather and put on events, whether it be weddings or golf or a Wishbone Brawl or something that raises. We're trying to do the Alice Dye Invitational Winter Park 9 with Rollins College as a tribute to Alice Dye, but also bringing college golf to Winter Park 9 to say, look at what a great little match play venue this could be, right? Just starting to think about things in just a different way. And I hope that's one of the byproducts and sort of a silver lining to, because I think people are going to need golf that's close to home, that is affordable, that takes less than 5 hours now more than ever. I hope.
Yeah, I mean, we couldn't agree more. And your passion for it, the Link's sole passion for it, and just kind of advocating for that side of the industry is evident and always well received, I think, between anyone who really, follows the game and for those who are just getting into it and kind of recognize the brand and see what you're doing for the game. So Matt, really appreciate the time just taking out to talk with us this evening on a great Easter Sunday. And I hope you've enjoyed the time, as I know we have. You yourself has released a podcast and joined us in the space. Tell us where people can find that, and I'm sure they will follow along and listen to what the stories you bring to the table.
Just getting going. So we just dropped podcast number 1 today. Masters, what would have been Masters Sunday, Easter Sunday. Mark Wiebe, John Ashworth grew up as kids, and they made a deal between the two of them when they were 9, 10 years old that if whoever went on to play at the Masters, the other one would caddy. And, a lot of us have made that deal. It just never comes true for either one of the guys who were part of the deal. But Mark Wiebe won in 1985 and qualified for the 86 Masters. John had caddied for him in 84. Hank Ashworth was caddying for him in 86. Hank gives the bag up for John to come back on the bag because of the childhood deal they made. And they tell me that story. We call it the fire pit because I'm going to be chasing down, the best stories I've heard or I've heard about that have interested me all these years, and wanting to try to share them in a format like this in which people can hear the sort of the longer version. And I've got the crew I've been working with at Golf Channel for the last 7 years. They're independent contractors, Alex Peggy and Rex Lint, helping me piece all this together. And I'm going to call on all my relationships and connections I've made over the years and try to get them to stop by the fire pit and tell some stories. So we dropped it on Apple. It's also a YouTube channel. We're going to have a visual version in some cases where it lends itself to some pictures and mementos for people who want to actually look at it instead of just listen to it. We're going to try to keep them pretty short. 15 to 50 minutes is going to be probably the max. And that's really the strategy. Joe Horwitz, a dear friend of mine, wrote the jingle. Our daughter created the logo in conjunction with Jeff Cunningham and my buddy Devin Peswater. They worked it all. This has been a sort of a quick process that's come about in the last 10 days, and I'm very excited. It gives me a voice again to tell stories, which is really at the heart of it all, right? That's my passion. So.
Yeah, no, we're very excited to listen along with I'm sure millions of others, and it's just it's like you said,
millions. I like it.
Hey, you got to shoot for the stars, right?
Yeah, I'll go with 100 for now. I think it's better than that.
But yeah, no, we talked off air, and it was kind of just like yourself getting back in the game. And you said you still have things airing on Golf Channel throughout the rest of the year, but excited to see, the new kind of fresh stories from you, and excited to see what you get into in the future as well. So we'll let you get back to your evening with your family. And thanks again, Matt. It was truly a pleasure.
No, thank you guys. You know what I think of you. Love your energy, your attitude, your enthusiasm. If there's anything I can ever do for you guys, you know where to find me. I look forward to seeing you back at WP9 here in the near future. Give us a little bit of that. Give it a little bit of that jing, some cheddar. We get some of your guys' cashish, but you always have a game every Friday afternoon out here. So I hope to see you soon.
Well, as soon as this craziness settles, that will be on our top list of places to be when we start traveling again. So thanks again, guys. As always, enjoy the walk. That was Matt Ginella. You guys know who he is.
That's the stuff. One shot.